Today on Newsmakers, we examine the newest class of aircraft carrier, the Ford class. This 3D computer rendering of the U.S.S. Gerald R. Ford CVN-78 gives us a preview of what will become the centerpiece of the Navy's fleet. The Ford class will have the same hull lines and number of decks as its predecessor, the Nimitz Class, but the general layout has been totally rearranged to accommodate new technology and meet all of the Navy's operational requirements. Simply put, it will have no equal. Before his passing, former President Gerald R. Ford learned that he would be the namesake for the CVN-78 and this entire class of carrier.
We talked about it some, and he, of course, had gotten, Secretary Rumsfeld had given him a cap, and we have pictures of Dad wearing the cap before he died. And it was very special to him, and we were very pleased that he was able to know about it before he passed away. He just never expected an honor like this. It's an incredible honor to have not only an aircraft carrier named after you, but it's going to be a whole other class of aircraft carriers. So, it's going to be known as the Ford class, and so that's really exciting.
President Ford's daughter, Susan Ford Bales, will serve as the ship's sponsor as well as the ship's authenticator.
And we're all very proud. My brothers and I were just extremely proud that this is the honor that he received.
The Gerald R. Ford CVN-78 will be the premier forward naval asset for crisis response and early decisive striking power in a major combat operation. The ship will be nearly 1,100 feet in length with a 134-foot beam and a top speed of more than 30 knots. The ship will accommodate more than 75 aircraft and have an essentially unlimited range. To build this state-of-the-art aircraft carrier, it takes a state-of-the-art facility. The Northrop Grumman shipyard in Newport News, Virginia, recently completed major facility upgrades to build this new class of aircraft carrier. Their signature 900-ton crane was upgraded to lift 1,050 tons. Northrop Grumman executives are excited by the opportunity and challenge of designing and building the carriers.
Well, it's a more capable ship for the Navy at a lower cost, lower total ownership cost. One of the principal things for this ship is that they'll be able to generate about 25% more sorties or missions in a given period of time.
It's an expansion of what we've been doing in the last part of the Nimitz Class. We converted the Nimitz Class from what we used to call stick building to modular construction. But now what we've done is we've taken that one step further.
What we're using is a product model called CATIA, and that really allows us to put the entire design into cyberspace, if you will.
We can actually visualize what the ship's going to look like. We can visualize how we're going to go and build it. The guys that are building this ship have built their space. They've already built these spaces in the computer many times, and they've already worked out a lot of the kinks that we used to not be able to work out until we got to the ship. We went into the design with a few critical parameters that we wanted to be able to do. We wanted to make the ship more capable, and so we had some capability parameters, but we also wanted to do some things where we took out several hundred people in the crew. We wanted to make the crew smaller and make it more capable, and so we kind of went into the design with those as parameters that we really wanted to design around. And then we said, okay, if we're going to do it that way, how are we going to build it? And when the ship leaves here, the ship actually is not just a bunch of steel. It actually has a personality. Whenever we take these things to sea, and you get to see the transformation of all of the hardware into something a lot more than that, that to me is the most exciting part of the business. And then you know that that's what's going to set the tone for what it's going to be for the next 50 years.
The Gerald R. Ford CVN-78 has been designed to produce more electrical power and increase flexibility while reducing operational and maintenance costs. The ship will be nuclear-powered, have a 50-year life cycle, and is scheduled to be operational in 2015. The Ford class will see improved warfighting capabilities with an improved design allowing weapons, materials, and information to move more efficiently around the ship. Some of the key innovations include a new propulsion plant, electrical distribution system, integrated warfare systems, advanced weapons elevators, electromagnetic catapults for safer and more reliable aircraft launches, and advanced arresting gear for safer landings. Total ownership costs compared to the Nimitz class are expected to be significantly lower. With new technology and 800 fewer sailors needed, Navy officials expect to save more than $5 billion over the ship's 50-year life cycle. The Ford class was the Navy's first surface warship to be completely designed using a three-dimensional product model. Bearing the name of Gerald R. Ford continues his legacy of a commitment to the military.
Well, I hope the ship never has to go to war. I mean, that would be a wonderful thing, that it never really has to go to war and that we aren't having to deal with that. But my dad was a defense guy, and he was on the arms committee and that sort of thing. And so that also just brings up more of his legacy and what he meant to the American people. And a strong military and defense was very important to him.
We were with my father when he first heard about this honor to have the CVN-78 named in his name. And this was something that brought great joy and just very emotion to his face, because his time in the Navy during World War II was very formative in his sense of duty to country and what it means to have America be a leader in the world of democracy and freedom. And for our family, it's a wonderful legacy and great tribute, because we knew him to be a man of great public service and someone who was very proud of his country. And here we have this magnificent vessel, state-of-the-art nuclear aircraft carrier that'll be with us for 50 years or so. And just have his name on it, it just, in a sense, represents my father's life carrying on into the next generation.
Susan says the role of the ship's sponsor can vary from person to person.
Well, there's many events being the sponsor, and tomorrow is the Keel laying, and then there will be the christening, and there'll be the commissioning, and then, as I heard today, being on the shipyard, that there's the setting of the tower and all these other things that you really can choose to be involved, or you can choose not to be involved, and I'm going to choose to be a very involved sponsor.
Susan's involvement already includes the naming ceremony where the model of the completed aircraft carrier was unveiled, and it was announced that the new class of the aircraft carrier would bear her father's name. It is a long-standing Navy tradition that the ship's sponsor be a female. President Ford's wife, Betty, chose to let Susan have that honor.
She could have been possibly the sponsor, but due to her age, because the life of a carrier is 50 years, so I will be gone probably before this carrier is done. So my children and grandchildren will have to live on and continue to follow the ship. But she just felt that because of her age that somebody younger needed to do it, and of course it has to be a female.
The Northrop Grumman Shipyard in Newport News, Virginia, was the site of the keel laying and authentication ceremony. Susan Ford met with the press, as well as the men and women who will build the Gerald R. Ford CVN-78. She wrote her name on a ceremonial banner, which includes the signatures of those responsible for making the project a reality. Among the names are those of politicians, military personnel, and high-ranking executives. But the vast majority of the names are the shipbuilders, many of whom are third- and fourth-generation shipbuilders. As part of her duties, Susan Ford got a first-hand look at the shipyard where the Ford class will be built.
After my tour of the shipyard this morning, I feel like I have a huge extended family now of all these shipbuilders, and the excitement and the patriotism and the involvement that they all have and the pride that they have in building the ship has really been unbelievable.
Well, there's about 20,000 employees at the shipyard working on all of our programs. We right now have 1,500 employees working on the waterfront, in the shops, and in this building and around here building the ship. That'll ramp up to about 4,500 craftspeople working on the ship at its peak. We have about 2,000 engineers and planners now also working on this activity.
Design and construction of the CVN-78 will cost about $5.1 billion and will take about 7 years to complete. At the time of the ceremony, about 1/3 of the ship's 1,200 structural units were already under construction.
We've got a fantastic team, a lot of experience.
The Grumman Shipyard is a secured site, normally off limits to the public and press, but on this day, family members of the shipbuilders were invited to the keel laying ceremony. Many speakers were on hand to honor Gerald R. Ford and celebrate the work and dedication of the shipbuilders.
welcome to the birthplace of our nation's aircraft carriers. We're thrilled you could be here to take part in the keel laying and authentication ceremony for the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford, CVN 78. Today signifies the official first step in the construction and delivery of this lead ship of a new class. When people describe President Gerald R. Ford, you hear certain characteristics repeated again and again: integrity, commitment, steadfastness, honesty, and uncompromising ethics. It's important that everyone, especially the Ford family, know that it is these words, these characteristics that we as shipbuilders will use as our guideposts in building this ship named after the 38th President of the United States.
High-ranking Navy officials were also on hand to pay honor to Ford and celebrate the project.
This ship that we are authenticating today will join the Nimitz Class and continue this rich tradition of aircraft carrier operations being on the front line of our nation's defense. The value of this ship and her sister carriers goes well beyond her formidable combat power. They're symbols of freedom and of national resolve. Their presence sends a message, both in terms of diplomacy as well as military strength, to friends and to potential foes. The diplomatic impact will be both direct, through port visits, multinational exercises, and crisis relief, and indirect by backing our policies, our partnerships, and promises with credible military strength. This relationship between our military prowess and diplomatic efforts was clearly articulated by President Ford in 1976 when he said, and I quote, "In the final analysis, the success of our diplomacy for peace depends upon our strength. The world's security depends upon our knowledge and the world's knowledge that we are strong and that we are prepared to defend ourselves when challenged."
1925, it was written, "It is the Navy's mission to protect our coast, our seaborne commerce, our far-flung possessions. Naval aviation cannot take the offensive from the shore. It must go to sea on the back of the fleet." That is the reason and the purpose for this ship. The Gerald R. Ford will sail abroad. It will carry the fight to the enemy. It will be the nucleus of a strike group around which our operations coalesce. There is nothing as reassuring to our friends and allies, and nothing so daunting to our enemies, as the sight of an American aircraft carrier and its companion strike group coming over the horizon. This carrier will join the elite group of ships that are our most visible and our most versatile demonstration of American military power. It's very fitting that our next carrier, a ship that will calm the unknown crisis of the future by its very presence offshore, will be named for President Gerald Ford. Throughout his life, President Ford, as a naval officer, a congressman, as president, projected a calm competence, reassuring all those around him that all would be well.
The principal address was given by U.S. Senator Carl Levin of Michigan, who chairs the Senate Armed Services Committee.
This ceremony signifies the formal beginning of a ship's construction, when in an earlier era, shipbuilders laid down the beam that held together its hull and upon which everything else depended. Not so long ago, Gerald R. Ford was the sturdy beam that held our nation together. This ship will bear the name of a man who assumed our nation's highest office at a time of great anguish and confusion, a time of great distress and doubt. At a time of great danger, Jerry Ford took the helm. At a time of instability, Jerry Ford kept our country on an even keel. An aircraft carrier embodies much of the greatness of our nation. More than just a demonstration of our strength and skill, it represents our commitment to send our sons and daughters over the seas, carrying with them the ideals that make our nation a beacon of freedom and hope. This is the lead ship of a new class, the most advanced of its type in existence. 34 years ago, President Ford attended the commissioning of another ship, also the first of its class, the most advanced of its day, the U.S.S. Nimitz. And he spoke with the reverence of a man who knew and loved the carrier fleet. President Ford said, quote, "As each of us looks upon this great ship, a single thought must seize our minds. Only the United States of America can make a machine like this. There is nothing like her in the world today," he said. "We have witnessed the magic moment when an intricate mass of steel and cable and sophisticated marvels of engineering suddenly become a living thing with a unique personality." I know that all who serve aboard the U.S.S. Gerald R. Ford will take inspiration from the unique personality of the man for whom she is named. To the men and women of the Navy, especially those who will serve aboard this great ship, I give my thanks for your service, my wishes for fair winds and following seas, and my hope that the example of Gerald Ford will guide your efforts as you defend the nation that he loved and we love so much. Thank you.
The keel of a ship is its foundation or backbone. In the past, it quite literally was a single piece upon which the rest of the ship was built. While shipbuilding technology has changed to a more modular type of construction, the ceremony has remained as the first milestone of the ship's construction and symbolizes seaworthiness. Susan Ford Bales authenticates the keel by chalking her initials on a metal plate. A welder traces those initials, and the plate is permanently affixed to the ship, forever linking this class of carrier with the Ford name.
Our welder for today's ceremony hails from Jackson, Michigan, and has welded on U.S.S. Ronald Reagan, U.S.S. George H.W. Bush, and now Gerald R. Ford, CVN 78. Please welcome our welder, Mr. Robert Bowker.
The overhead door to the facility is open to reveal the first section of the keel being lifted into place as the first official construction piece of the Gerald R. Ford CVN-78.
I hereby declare the keel of the United States Navy aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford CVN-78 truly and fairly laid.
Yeah, just another routine 950-ton lift.
There was nothing ordinary about this lift. The 950-ton section was moved to an enormous dry dock where the ship will be assembled. The entire lift will take about 40 minutes to complete. The segment shown here in time-lapse took about 15 minutes in real time. Susan Ford Bales addresses the crowd.
Thank you for joining me in this extraordinary tribute to Dad and his milestone in the life of the Navy's newest carrier and its newest carrier class, the Ford class. The Navy tradition provides that both the sponsor and the namesake spirit become a permanent part of the ship. But the spirit of the U.S.S. Gerald R. Ford will be different. The spirit of this carrier will be deeper, much deeper. With us today is a group of individuals who are contributing to the spirit of this carrier as much as the namesake and her sponsor. They are the shipbuilders of Northrop Grumman Shipyard. When a new carrier sets to sea, her shipbuilders' quality and pride leave the construction site, often to become a faint memory in the history of the carrier. Let us resolve today that this will not be the case when the U.S.S. Gerald R. Ford sets to sea. At this time, I'd like to ask the shipbuilders and their families to please stand. A few moments ago, I declared that the keel is true and fairly laid. If Dad were with us this morning, he probably would join me in the following additional declaration. Ladies and gentlemen, as the ship sponsor and on behalf of President Gerald R. Ford, I hereby declare that the shipbuilders of the CVN-78 and their patriotic commitment to excellence are and shall forever be truly and fairly part of the spirit of the U.S.S. Gerald R. Ford. May God bless each of you and the U.S.S. Gerald R. Ford. May he watch over and keep safe the men and women of the United States Navy. May God bless America. Thank you all very much.